Alright guys, welcome back to my breakdown, and I would like to break down week 9 games in the early afternoon, the late afternoon slot on Sunday. So if you want to catch the Sunday Night Football and the Monday Night Football breakdown for the Bills and Bengals and for the Chargers and the Jets, catch my episode on Thursday with Dylan Boyle. So right now I'll just get into the early and late afternoon window games on Sunday. So I'd like to most importantly start with the NFC East showdown of the Cowboys at the Eagles. And this was a back and forth game. It came down to the wire. Dak played great in this game. Look, this loss is not on Dak. I think Dak played very well this game. You know, like I said, keeps moving out of the pocket, making plays when he has to. They kept coming right back down the field every time Philadelphia scored. They were just punching right back. And, you know, there was a lot of penalties on Dallas in this game. You know, there was one or two, like specifically one with A.J. Brown on the sideline that I didn't really necessarily agree with, but a lot of it was on them. And, you know, that comes down to coaching. But, you know, towards the end of the game, Philadelphia started to do the same exact thing. There was a lot of issues with penalties for the Eagles. And there was an encroachment, and that got Dallas. I'm pretty sure it was an encroachment, and it got Dallas inside the 10-yard line. And I'm thinking Dallas is going to win that game at that point in the fourth quarter. And then what happens? A false start by Dallas. I'm pretty sure Dak tried to do a quarterback draw and got stopped. And then a sack and a delay of game. So Dallas kind of tends to do this where they kind of find a way to lose these close, tough games, and the Eagles find a way to win these close, tough games. And look, like I said, this can't be on Dak, because Dak, look at his numbers. Dak was great today. Dak had a great game, and they were scoring points. So to me, this comes down to Mike McCarthy, the head coach. At some point with the penalties and the mistakes and the bad judgment calls by Mike McCarthy, it's going to come back to bite Dallas in the rear end, especially in the playoffs. Eagles could have definitely lost this game. I mean, if Dallas punched it inside the 10-yard line, we'd be talking about a different story. I was it was going back and forth. I had to watch to the very end because I didn't know how this result was going to play out. So it was really a crazy ending in this game. Philadelphia's defense kind of looks like Swiss cheese out there. Dallas was kind of moving up and down the field. They got key turnovers when they had to, like that fourth down play a couple series before that last series for Dallas, where they got stopped at the goal line. That was a huge stop by the Eagles. But Dallas kept making the stops when they had to, too. And they got their offense the ball with time left on the clock multiple times to win that game. So, you know, this was just a great game. I went back and forth with some people in the comments on Instagram, on TikTok. I'm not trying to hate on Dallas here. I think Dallas played very well in this game. I really think the fault for this loss comes down to coaching, and some calls didn't go your way. And this happens. It's the NFL. And for the Eagles, you know, some calls went your way. You got a little lucky, but you made stops when you had to. And, you know, that's kind of what you've been doing all season. You haven't been playing. You had a couple of really good games, but most of the games you've been struggling, and you find ways to win. And that's why I think the Eagles are the best team in the league, because even though they haven't been playing great, they've been finding ways to win every game. Besides that one Jets game, and I'm a Jets fan, I'm the first person to say that was a very weird game. So, not trying to hate on Dallas here. That was a very good game for Dallas, but you know, it was two very good teams, and both in the same division. And we all knew this was probably going to be the game of the week, and it kind of typical of the way it ended. You know, the Eagles found a way to win, Dallas found a way to lose, and to me, it just comes down to McCarthy because, like I said, Dak. The last 3 games, he's been on a tear. Against the Chargers, he played great. Against the Rams, he played great. And today, he played great. Like, look at his numbers. Dak's been really good. You play him again at home later in the season, so we'll see what happens there. Maybe you can squeeze out a win. So, I'd like to move on to the Dolphins and Chiefs. I made a mistake last week. You know, I said it was at Arrowhead, and Arrowhead was going to be a tough place to play at. It was actually in Germany. You know, it's kind of weird because you put the game, one of the best games, across the seas, and like I live on the East Coast, so that's like a 9:30 game for me. People on the West Coast, you have to wake up at 6:30 to see a game. I mean, I know neither of the teams are West Coast teams, and they both get a bye week now. But you know, it was a little kind of crazy because this was like was a really good game, and you could have seen this as a great game in the offseason going to the season as well. And I think it's finally time to say. And I've been big on Miami. I was big on them in the offseason, and I've been big on them to start in the regular season. But I think they're frauds. Look, I think they're frauds because I haven't seen them beat a good team. And I don't think any of us have seen them beat a good team since last season, to be honest. I think their last big win against a good team was the Bills last season, before all those concussions happened with Tua. And they were shut out in the first half. And look, I know the Chiefs were shut out in the second half, but here's the difference. The Kansas City Chiefs have a legit problem at wide receiver. They don't have a number 1 wide receiver. I could argue they don't have a number 2 wide receiver. Even though I like Rashee Rice, he's still coming on. The Miami Dolphins don't have that problem. They had pieces on offense, and now they have the pieces on defense, as it showed shutting the Chiefs down in the second half. So what's Miami's excuse for going scoreless in the half? They have all the pieces on offense. You know, Mostert had, I think, tied for the most total touchdowns going into the game. Tyreek Hill's on pace for 2,000 total receiving yards. Tua has been, like, in the top 3 for MVP candidate. Why? How are you not scoring any points in the first half? So Miami is obviously a playoff team to me. Obviously, they're too talented not to be a playoff team, but they are not a Super Bowl team. They're not in my bubble. They were after the first couple games of the season, but now, they got to, like I said, going to this game, they had to prove to me that they could hang with the big dogs to consider them a big dog, and they've shown the opposite. They're a little puppy. They're like my little dog Zoe. She's a little Shih Tzu. That's what the Miami Dolphins are right now. Flashy. They look cute, but at the end of the day, when they have a bulldog coming at them, they're gonna go run and ask to be picked up. My girlfriend's laughing at me right now, wherever she is. Anyway, like I said, they need to learn to win these important games against big teams. And I do think they're going to be in the playoffs, but they're going to get exposed once they get to the playoffs, because when Miami falls down and someone gets a lead on them and people know that they have to pass, they don't seem as tricky anymore, and their motions and their play calling doesn't seem as clever anymore when people see it coming. So Miami has to make a few adjustments. I love their head coach. Ramsey and Xavier Howard, 2 great defensive backs with Fangio on the defense. Seems like the defense is really starting to shore itself up. The offense just has to be more consistent. And maybe that happens when Achane comes back. So we'll see what happens. But Miami, obviously, I still think they're going to be in the playoffs. But, they show me every week more and more that they're not a legitimate Super Bowl contender, period. Seahawks at Ravens, and boy, did the Baltimore Ravens dominate this game. Look, the Seahawks have the roster to compete. It really comes down to the quarterback that's holding them back. I like Geno. He threw for 30 touchdowns last season, but maybe it was a one-season wonder. Maybe we can all agree on that by now. He still has good games. Don't get me wrong. I think Geno's a good quarterback, but is he great? Is he going to be the quarterback that brings them to a Super Bowl? Probably not, and he's not their quarterback for the future, so they're always going to be limited with him in a way. They were terrible on third down today. They've been pretty bad on third down for most of the season, the offense. And, it really comes down to the Ravens' run game was unstoppable. I think they had 4 players rush for at least 40 yards or more. Meanwhile, Seattle didn't have one guy rush for at least 20 yards. So that was the difference of the game right there. So I know Geno needs a consistent running game to win these games. But the difference is Lamar Jackson's part of that running game. So Lamar Jackson is very valuable. And like I said, he's on an MVP chase right now, Lamar Jackson. He's showing it again. Another good team, boom, plows right through him. The Ravens could very well be the 1 seed in the AFC. I think that's very realistic to say. I think right now they probably would be the favorites. And the Seahawks are going to be in the playoffs too. But look, they're going to be limited until they get a legitimate quarterback in there. And it wasn't all on Lamar. It wasn't all on Geno Smith. Obviously, the defense got gashed in the running game, which set up the play action for Lamar. Lamar kind of had his way, of course. When the running game's like that, like Justice Hill, Gus Edwards. Oh, and how about Keaton Mitchell? Undrafted free agent, had himself a day. I think he had 150 rushing yards. Crazy game for Keaton Mitchell, and it goes to show that system that they have in Baltimore. Everyone eats, and Seahawks just kind of ran into a brick wall here. Obviously they're not going to win the NFC West. Let's be honest, the 49ers are still probably going to take that. I know that they lost their last 3 and Seattle's kind of looked hot here, but today kind of showed what Seattle really is. It's like they're a good team, but they're still a few pieces away. I don't think they're a few pieces away. I think they're 1 piece away, the quarterback, and maybe some offensive linemen, maybe a few more defensive players. They have a top 10 roster, in my opinion. And I do like Geno. Geno needs to be 30 touchdowns Geno from last season, though. He's been a little up and down this season. I will say that. He's been up and down. Although I do like him, but, he's not the guy for the future. And he might not be the guy for now. But he's better than Drew Lock, so this is what you're going to roll with. And he's going to win some more games. He's going to have, I will say, he's good with the deep ball. He's very good with the deep ball, but he didn't have a chance to do that today because he fell behind so quick. And, no running game at all. I would know I have Kenneth Walker in fantasy. Had nothing going today. And, Baltimore's defense is legit. They're a top 5 unit, so they have a top 5 defense, a top 5 running game, top 5 quarterback, top 5 head coach, in my opinion. Definitely top 10 head coach. He's won the Super Bowl. So this might be Baltimore's year. Bucs at Texans. I want to get into this game because of, C.J. Stroud is the real deal. And this was an offensive shootout. Going into this game, I didn't see this being an offensive shootout. The Bucs have a good defense, and the Texans have a sneaky, feisty defense. And this was back and forth. And like I said, C.J. Stroud, he's the real deal. 470 yards, over 70% completion percentage, 5 touchdown passes. He had the rookie record for most passing yards in the game for a rookie. I don't know what his ceiling is exactly, but I know right now he's a pretty good player. He's a top 15 player now. So what's his ceiling? Could he be a top 10 guy? Maybe. maybe you put some more pieces around him. I mean, they don't have much. They don't have a lot of talent. I know they have some sneaky receivers. I like Nico Collins. Tank Dell's pretty spicy. Damian Pierce is pretty good. They have Schultz, but they had a few more pieces on that offense, and their defense is still on rebuilding phase a little bit. I think they're a year away from being a playoff team. Obviously, they're probably not a playoff team this year, but they had some pieces in the offseason. They draft right. The Houston Texans, they could be a force for years to come with this quarterback who's playing this well on a rookie contract. So kudos to the Houston Texans. And the Bucs played well in this game too, but it looks like at the end of the day, the Texans, C.J. Stroud wanted it more. I don't want to say wanted it more because Baker went right down the field and got a touchdown too when he had to. But Stroud's the young and more juice as far as quarterback, and they have the head coach with the more juice. I'm not crazy about Todd Bowles and the Bucs, but this could have went either way, and the Texans just pulled it off. And C.J. Stroud, I just really wanted to talk about how C.J. Stroud's impressed me a lot for the first half of the season. I mean, coming out of the draft, I thought he was going to be one of the quarterbacks that would flop. And, I thought Bryce Young would be better. And it looks like so far that I'm wrong, that C.J. Stroud is the much better player. It maybe added a little bit of bias because coming out of Ohio State, they haven't had the best success with quarterbacks. But, it's been clear that C.J. Stroud, and he might have a few more weapons than Bryce Young does. I do think Adam Thielen's better than any receiver they have there. But regardless, C.J. Stroud, I mean, even though the Panthers beat them, C.J. Stroud has been playing better than Bryce Young. So, C.J. Stroud, the Houston Texans got their guy for sure. And their head coach, DeMeco Ryans. Last but not least, Vikings at Falcons. Josh Dobbs just got here this week. What, he get traded Monday, Tuesday, whatever it was? And he started off pretty disastrous. 3 total fumbles in the game, but had a couple fumbles early. But once again, at the end, making magic happen at the end. He had, ran for a touchdown, had a nice touchdown pass, and come back and get the win. Huge win for the Minnesota Vikings. And Josh Dobbs is the ultimate spot starter. You need a guy that you need one game, and you need a guy to start for you, and you don't have your starting quarterback there, and you need a guy off the street to get that win for you, and they don't know the playbook, and you just need to throw a guy out there to make something happen. Josh Dobbs is the ultimate guy. You just plug him in, and he'll give you a decent performance. He did it last year on the Titans. I seen him do it a couple years ago on the Steelers. He did it early in this season with the Cardinals. They just signed him, and then he was playing right away. And now he's doing it with the Minnesota Vikings. And can the Vikings make the playoffs with Josh Dobbs? I would say so. They're looking good right now. Jordan Addison's coming on. Josh Dobbs just got there, doesn't even know the plays, and he's playing well. Imagine what he looks like when he knows the plays. Plus, Justin Jefferson's coming back. I like their head coach. There's a lot to like here about the Vikings. We were saying a couple weeks ago they're one of the worst teams in the league. Now it's looking like they could make the playoffs. So, Josh Dobbs getting there at the right time, and we could see this team making the playoffs. So, Josh Dobbs, once again, being the ultimate plug-and-play guy. Like I said, I filmed this in between the Sunday Night Football game and the early to late afternoon windows, so like around 6, 7 o'clock Eastern time on Sunday. So if you want to catch the Sunday night game and the Monday night game breakdown, see my episode on Thursday. So that's really what we got today. So, interesting week, man. A lot of close games, especially that Bucs and Texans game and the Vikings and Falcons game. And usually I wouldn't bring games like that up in this breakdown. I would only bring up the big games against really good teams. But just the way both those games ended, with C.J. Stroud and with Josh Dobbs, both great stories in their own respective way. So, all right. I'll see you guys on Thursday. Take care.